Hi, this is Marta from Movie Soup with Spilled Juice, and today I am bringing you a very brief vlog of Star Wars The Last Jedi. The reason why this is going to be brief is because I still have a little bit of a cold and I haven't fully recovered, but let's persist nevertheless. Uh, so The Last Jedi is the second installment in what is going to be like the new trilogy, as they call it. And it follows Rey, who has gone to seek out Luke Skywalker, and she wants to learn to become a Jedi. And Finn has just woken up from his coma, and him and Poe and a engineer called Rose, they are off on a mission trying to save the Resistance, which is being heavily brutalized by the First Order. And the whole plot kind of takes off from there. Now, I should say that this vlog is going to be very spoilerific, so if you haven't seen this movie yet, pause this video and go watch it, and then come back, and then we can talk about it. So, I'm first going to talk about the stuff that I liked in this movie, and then I will go into negatives. Now, first, Rose. Rose Tycho is the newest addition to, like the newest character added into this trilogy, and I really liked her. She's very cute, but she's not like conventionally attractive, and she wears clothes that you would kind of expect an engineer to wear. And she's really like wide-eyed and optimistic, and but also very tough. Like she does taser Finn when she thinks that he's leaving the Resistance. And I really liked her backstory, like how she had this connection with her sister Paige, and how her and Paige grew up in this very brutally capitalistic planet where they were using child labor. And I really liked all of that. And in fact, I really liked that they brought that kind of world building where they were also talking about, because that was one of my problems with the original Star Wars movies. I always thought that they did kind of show some of the horrible stuff that was happening, but not always like that clearly. And Rose's backstory kind of like shows like the real actual consequences of having such like an oppressive regime like the First Order, and like what it means when there's like this kind of tyrannical rule. And I also really liked Finn in this movie. He's really funny, but he's also very likable and very, also like Rose, very sweet. And actually, I really liked Finn's and Rose's friendship and possible relationship. I know like this is a little bit of a controversial thing because a lot of people feel that their romance came out of nowhere, but I'm going to defend this a little bit. I actually think that they've been through a lot of traumatic stuff together, and people can really easily get attached to each other in those kinds of situations. As well as like Rose kind of already looks up to Finn because she sees him as this big hero, and she's already kind of having a little bit of an attraction to him in the beginning. And we don't really know what Finn feels for her, so they could develop this in the third movie if they want to. So I just kind of think that it's very cute so far, and I really ship them. I used to ship Finn and Ray, but that has changed a little bit. I'll get into that later. But I actually really like Rose, and I really ship her and Finn. I'm on board for this relationship, and I'm open to see what they're gonna do with that. And I also liked like it's also another controversial thing, but I actually like the conflict between Poe and the captain that Leia puts in charge after she kind of goes into a coma. Because I think like that's a part of war that is actually not shown that much. That in that in these kinds of like really intense and very stressful and kind of panic inducing situations, people don't always follow orders, and even if you're on the same side, you can get into fights, and people, and people want to go off and do other things, and it causes all sorts of problems. Like if you've seen Saving Private Ryan, then there's like scenes there where the commander tells the soldiers not to do certain things, and they do it anyway, and it causes problems. So this scene where Poe doesn't want to go along with the captain at all, and he sends Rose and Finn off on this wild adventure, and they don't really know what they're doing, and they're getting into all sorts of problems. That all felt really real to me. And a lot of people said that it didn't really lead anywhere, but I disagree because it's actually world building. Because, like I said, we learn about all these things that are happening outside of the Resistance, and it is very possible that these things are going to come into play into the third film. So I think that they're setting things up in order to carry them on into the third film. And another thing that was very controversial was Luke Skywalker. And here's my take on it. You know, the Luke that we see in the classic trilogy, he's a very young man. He's like in his 20s, like he's a teenager when we meet him. And the Luke that we meet now, he's a lot more older. And people do change when they get older. You're not really the same person in your 30s than what you were when you were 15. So, and when people change, it's not always for the best. Like sometimes people do become disillusioned, sometimes people do become depressed. And while there's certain things that I understand that there's certain things that he does that I don't really agree with, like him throwing away the lightsaber, that I agree was a bit odd. Then the other very controversial scene where he tried to kill Ben when Ben was asleep. Now, I mean, I think it depends on how you interpret this scene. Uh, I think what happened was that it was all about bad timing. Like Luke sees a vision and he sees something really horrible, like probably like violence or murder or something. And his self defense reflex come in and he picks up a weapon. And he probably feels ashamed already when he notices that but that this is ridiculous. But right then Ben wakes up. I mean, that's how I interpreted it. That it was actually all about a split second. And everybody has a split second. I think like if I consider myself a pacifist, but I think like if I saw a vision where somebody was hurting me, I think like I probably would pick up a knife, but it doesn't mean that I'm really gonna use it. It's just that split second self defense mechanism that, that reflex that you have. But like I said, comment down below what you thought about it. I would actually like to talk about this because I think this made sense, but I know it's very highly controversial. But otherwise than that, I know like Mark Hamill didn't really like what they were doing with Luke, and it kind of did show because he was not really putting his end game into it. He wasn't giving it 100% until the very end, where you notice that his acting got a lot more better because he was getting more enthusiastic about the character. So that was a little bit lacking. I sometimes felt that Hamill, you're not really enthusiastic about this. Uh, and another thing that, like, if we go into the stuff that I didn't like, now this is a little bit complicated because in a way I did like it, but at the same time I really didn't like it, and I'll try to explain. I The connection between Rey and Kylo, I was not actually the biggest fan of. And I know like this is like really well loved by Star Wars fans and a lot of people ship her and Kylo. I don't at all. I actually don't like Kylo. I think he's very whiny and not very all that charismatic, if I'm going to be honest. I think the actor does a good job because I think it's supposed to be up to interpretation whether you think he's whiny or not. Personally, I'm not such a fan of him. Well, I kind of did first think that it was kind of interesting about Rey and Kylo having this connection and talking to each other. I did not like the romantic tone that they were giving it, and it felt like really uncomfortable. And I did not like it how Rey then says, like, despite that Luke is telling her, like, don't do this, this is stupid. She goes, she goes over to Kylo and she gets captured. Now things work out in her favor because Kylo then decides to kill Snoke. But I mean, she could have as easily gotten killed in that situation. And now, and I think like again, this is down to personal taste. Some people really like spunky heroines, and they like spunky characters that do impulsive things and go out there and are like reckless and brave. I actually don't like it so much. I kind of think that it does makes the characters look very stupid and very thoughtless. And Ray actually came off as like not really thoughtless and kind of like, well, yeah, actually even a little bit stupid because Luke is telling her, "Don't do this, don't do this," and she goes there. She has no backup, and she doesn't really know this guy. They have a psychic connection, but otherwise than that, it's not like it's not like they know each other like that they were childhood friends or anything like that, where she would actually know for certain he's not going to actually hurt her. I mean, let's be honest. And it just kind of comes off as that she's also kind of like becoming very complicit in this kind of very fascist way of Kylo Ren's thinking, and that she is kind of excusing his fascist ideas and his and thinking that there's good in him, where it's kind of like, well, we haven't. I mean, like, he's nice to her, but he still wants to kill everyone off, and that thing just comes off as really unpleasant. And actually, Rey's character really took a hit for me because I thought that she was so complicit in Kylo Ren's behavior and so thoughtless that I actually ended up not liking her at all, which was a pity because I really liked her in The Force Awakens. And like I said, I really wanted her and Finn to get together, but now I kind of think that Finn's too good for her, really. I much prefer Rose now. It's like, yeah, Finn, go off with Rose. I mean, she's much more likable. She's not complicit to fascist. So yeah, sorry if that was too brief, but like I said, I still got a bit of a cold. But stay tuned. I do have more book and cartoon related videos coming up and more vlogs on the way. If you like this video, click the like button, subscribe, and I'll talk to you all later.